Hi everybody, today we're going to talk about Lesson 71, Reducing Fractions. So if we think about fractions and some of the problems we've been doing where we're changing fractions to percents, if I have a problem like 2/50 equals what percent, I can multiply 2/50 times a fraction equal to 1 so that my denominator becomes 100. So I know 50 times 2 is 100. So I can multiply by the fraction equivalent to 1, 2 halves. And then I can finish up my problem. When I'm reducing a fraction, I can do the same thing, but instead of multiplying, I'm going to divide. So reducing a fraction has several names that we call it, okay? We call it reducing. We call it putting a fraction into simplest form. And we can also call it lowest terms. Put the fraction in lowest terms. All three of these mean the exact same thing that I'm going to teach you to do right now. So if you see one of these words, you're going to follow the following process. So example 1 says, reduce the fraction 6/8 by dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 2. So I would write my fraction 6/8. Now instead of multiplying, I'm going to divide by the fraction 2 halves. This is equivalent to 1. And then I divide straight across. So 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and 8 divided by 2 equals 4. So 6/8 reduces to 3/4. If I was to draw a picture, and here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/8. It's the same as having 1, 2, 3/4. Okay, they are equivalent. We're just showing it in a different way. Okay, we call this the lowest terms, the simplest form, or we have reduced the fraction. All right, example 2. Which of these fractions cannot be reduced? So when you reduce a fraction, you have to be able to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number evenly. So let's take each of these. Let's start with A. 2/6. I know that the common factors of 2 and 6 are 2, so I can divide by 2 halves. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I get 1/3. So my answer is not A. Problem B, 3/6. Okay, the common factors are 3 and 6, the common factor is 3, because I know 3 goes into both 3 and 6. So I can divide by 3/3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So it does reduce to 1/2. So my answer is not B. C, 4/6. Four and 6 are both even, so I know that 2 can go into both numbers. So I can divide by 2 halves. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 2 and 3 do not have any common factors, so there's my final answer. So the answer is not C either. So even though we know now from a process of elimination that the answer is D, let's look at why. Okay? 5 and 6 do not have any common factors. The only factors of 5 are 1 and 5. The only factors of 6 are 1 and 6, and 2 times 3. Even though they have 1 in common, If I divide by 1, I won't actually be changing the numbers. So because they have no common factors, D is my answer and D cannot be reduced. Okay, let's look at example 3. Add and then reduce the answer. So of course we're showing all of our work. So 1/8 plus 5/8. Remember, when you add, your denominators must be the same. So we're going to add straight across the numerators. 1 plus 5 is 6. But my denominator stays the same. Okay, so I have 6/8. Well, 6/8 can be reduced because if I find my common factors, 1 times 6 and 2 times 3, my factors of 8 are 1 and 8 and 2 and 4. I see that 2 is a common factor of both. So I'm going to divide then by 2 halves. 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and 8 divided by 2 equals 4. I cannot reduce 3/4 any further because they do not have a common factor. So my final answer then is 3/4. Okay? Excellent. All right, example 4. Jenna has a box of beads that are all the same size and shape, but different colors. The box has 4 red beads, 6 yellow beads, and 20 blue beads. Without looking, Jenna chose 1 bead from the box. Question A, what are all of the possible outcomes? The outcome means that when I stick my hand in that box, what are the possible colors that I could draw? So my outcomes are red, yellow, and blue. Those are the only 3 things, or the only 3 colors that one of those beads could possibly be. They couldn't be green because there are not any green ones in the box. So my possible outcomes are red, yellow, and blue. But then B asks, what is the probability that the bead Jenna chose was blue? Probability is a fraction. So when I'm asking for the possibility of 1 is blue, my numerator will be blue and my denominator will be the total number of beads in the box. So there are 20 blue beads in the box. If I add 20 plus 4 plus 6, there are a total of 30 beads. Well, 20 and 30 can be reduced. Okay? Since they both have a 0 on the end, I know that both of these can be divided by 10. So I'm going to choose to divide by 10/10. 20 divided by 10 equals 2. 30 divided by 10 equals 3. So my probability that a blue bead will be picked is 2/3, or 2 out of every 3 beads. Okay? Now, I could reduce by a different number. Let's say I reduced 20/30ths. Let's say these are both divisible by 5. So if I divide by 5/5, 20 divided by 5 is 4, 30 divided by 5 is 6, and while this has been reduced, it is not in its simplest form. I can reduce further because 4 and 6 are both even, so I can reduce again by 2 halves. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I get the same answer. I just have to do 2 steps. So you need to make sure you keep going when you reduce until you have the simplest form, until you cannot reduce any further. Here with 4/6, I could keep reducing because 4 and 6 do have a common factor. All right, let's look at example 5. Subtract and reduce the answer. Make sure that you subtract vertically, please. 5 and 5/6 minus 2 and 1/6. So 5/6 minus 1/6, 5 minus 1 is 4. I'm subtracting, so my denominator stays the same. And now I subtract my wholes. 5 minus 2 is 3. Well, I'm not going to do anything with this 3. It gets left alone. It's a whole number. It's as simple as it can get. But this 4/6 here, this can be reduced. So 4/6, they're both even. So I'm going to divide by 2. 2 halves. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So this 2/3 then is going to replace 4/6. So my final answer is 3 2/3. Okay. All right, that is it. Off to your lesson practice. It does continue on top of page 529 through letter L. Please make sure you show all your work, and when you are adding and subtracting fractions, please make sure you do so vertically, like this, not horizontally, so that you get that borrowing or carrying when necessary. All right, that's it, and I will see you in the morning.